Keep this short and sweet. No recap, unless you guys want to hear about my rain-soaked weekend in Seattle. The University of North Dakota. This is Coach Schweigert's got an identity there. I think defensively in particular, they've really kind of been the same group. This will be the third time that we've played them in my 4 years here. Second time that we've gone over there. Tough environment. They're playing very, very well at home. They're a completely different team. I mean, it's almost like watching two different teams at times. And I think the Eastern Washington game was a little bit weird because the weather was so awful that I think that affected really both teams' ability to kind of do what they wanted to do. And Eastern did a nice job with Barrier as a run threat, kind of creating some matchup problems for them, and did a nice job in the run game. And then Idaho State kind of got on them early with some deep passes and created some takeaways. But they don't look different at home. They play fast, confident, and you can tell they feed off that crowd. And it's an impressive-looking group. I think offensively, very multiple, much more so maybe than they have been in the past. In the past, you'd get a lot of the unbalanced sets and the extra offensive linemen, and very, very heavy on the run game. And they're still committed to running the football, but they're much more balanced. I think they do a nice job of managing the perimeter. Ketteringham, the quarterback, I think does a really good job of box counting. And if he likes the numbers advantage on the perimeter of the offense, he's going to get the ball out there. They've got a really big physical receiving core. I think it creates matchup problems for a lot of teams, especially in the red zone. They'll hit a lot of back shoulder fades. I think all three of their starting receivers are listed at 6'4". And so it's a, kind of a matchup problem on the perimeter of the offense a lot of times, not just in the pass game, but also because those guys are so big, they're really good at blocking on the perimeter of their offense. And so that's kind of what I see there. They got kind of a 1-2 punch at running back. The big kid, Johansson, 33, he's a load, man. I mean, there's guys making some business decisions when he comes through the hole and getting out of the way. And then 35, a little bit more of a complete back. I wouldn't say he's a scat back because he's a 6 foot, 190-pound guy. But they do use him a little bit more in the pass game. And so I think I like their balance on offense. I think their quarterback is a very efficient player for them. Offensive line, as always, big physical group that they have there at the University of North Dakota under Coach Schweigert. On defense, man, these guys, I just like watching this team play defense because they play hard. I mean, they run to the ball. Their inside linebacker, 44, is their leading tackler. And that guy, I mean, he's a sideline-to-sideline player at 6'1", 238 pounds, I think he's listed at. But, I mean, he's physical. That you can tell these guys, I mean, they're coached the right way. Great passion for the game. Really enjoy watching this group play. They create a lot of problems for you because of their pre- and post-snap movement. They'll stem a bunch pre-snap. And then post-snap, they're going to do a lot of stunning and looping, about a 35% blitz percentage. You get into a pass game against them, you don't want to do that. I mean, I think UC Davis is a prime example of that. The drop-back pass game, they're gonna get their hits on the quarterback. They're going to create problems. They're a very good tackling team, and not just their front seven. Their DBs tackle well. And so they don't give up a ton of big plays. You kind of got to earn it against this group. And in the kicking game, they've got an explosive returner. He didn't play last week against Cal Poly. I'm not sure why. Number one, kid from Seattle. He's dynamic. He's got some juice to him. And then Mikey Greibel's little brother is their punt returner. And so a little bit of a connectivity there between the Bobcats and the Fighting Hawks. But, like I said, I mean, this is your typical Big Sky deal. You turn them on and you're like, they're way better than you want them to be. And we're going to have our hands full. I mean, it's like I said, it's a tough environment to play in. You got that student section right behind you. I know it's a 11 o'clock Mountain kickoff, but that's not going to matter. They'll be in the parking lot starting about 6 a.m., shotgunning beers and doing whatever it is they do over there. And it'll be interesting. And so, that was one thing I definitely remember from our last trip there is that they have done their homework and they're, you better have some earplugs in. I got called some new names. I didn't really. And I've been called a lot of names, and so it was interesting. But that's kind of what I see. I like the edge players on defense. I think they built it right. 55 and 15, really good players. 25, active safety. 44, really good tackler at linebacker. With that being said, take any questions.
You mentioned how inconsistent they can be. How do you kind of approach that in your game plan?
Well, we know who they are at home. They haven't been inconsistent at home. They beat Sam Houston State, who's leading the Southland Conference with a 4-1 conference record right now. Beat Drake, and they beat Cal Davis, who at the time was a top 10 team. And so that's all we have to do to get our guys' attention to say this is who we're playing. And we're not playing the team that played at Idaho State. We're not playing this team or that team. We're playing the team that got after Cal Davis, and probably that game shouldn't have even been as close as it was.
It's interesting because you've seen Ketteringham before, but
when he was at Sacramento State.
Yeah.
And seems like he is able to make a lot of plays with the game on the line. Certainly did it last week as well. So what do you see in him, and what do you remember about that first matchup?
I don't remember much. Yeah, I kind of blocked that one out of my brain. But I remember Chris Murray made a bunch of plays in that game, and he's not here anymore. So it would have been nice to have Chris Murray and Ketteringham, reunite again. But here's the thing. I mean, I think this kid does what they ask him to do very well. That's what I'm seeing. I'm seeing a quarterback who gets up to the line of scrimmage, and if you're 2 over 2 on the outside, they got their RPO, and he's going to get the ball out there. He's an accurate passer. He's got big targets, and certainly he takes advantage of that. I think especially, like I said, I mean, not all of these guys, they're 6'4" guys, so they're kind of build-up speed guys, not very short area quick, but he will throw them open and use their catch radius, whether that's a back shoulder or a 50-50 ball. I think he has a lot of confidence in those guys down the field. And then they kind of got this number 4 who's kind of you think he's a Kevin Cassis, and then you look at the roster and he's 6'2", 212. So he's more of a Troy Anderson than he is probably a Kevin Cassis in terms of, his style of running. And they'll use him in a wildcat and get the ball to him in a variety of ways as well.
They're physical on defense. They've always been able to run the ball. But with that added element in the pass game, how much do you have to emphasize that, especially with some of that RPO act?
It's just changed the game. I mean, if I had a nickel for every time they had 6 guys 12 yards downfield on their offensive line and they're still throwing a slant, but it's not going to, it hasn't been called. It has not been called against them in one game. And so it's just the rules have changed, and it makes it more and more difficult to play defensive football. And because we don't even enforce the rules. You can have offensive linemen, like I said, 8, 10, 12 yards downfield at times, blocking a safety, and they're throwing a slant behind the safety. I just don't know how you equate that to what we're supposed to be doing here. But that's the way modern football is. I mean, we got worked over pretty good on some RPOs a couple weeks ago against Sac State. I think a lot of what you have to do to defend against that is you've got to talk them out of it pre-snap. But you can't do it at the risk of being out of position when the ball's snapped. And so that's where the premium is on, having smart players and understanding how defenses or how offenses are trying to attack you. You get these linebackers, we call it a run-pass conflict, where you're responsible first as a run defender. And that Mike linebacker dives in on a zone fake, and that ball comes right behind him, and that's tough to defend. And so you've got to cover that guy up a little bit. And I think getting creative with what we're doing in terms of our pre-snap looks has got to be something that we take a better look at. And that was a focus for us in the bye week, because we're going to see other teams that do this. And I think that that's the evolution that you can see of the UND offense. It's not just, hey, we're just going to – they had those 2 backs, it seemed like forever, and they were both really good players. And I still think they have some really good running backs. But they are, I'd say, more of a spread offense now than they are a power offense. And I know that's – even though they're still running the elements of what they used to do, when you look at them on tape, I think they're probably more spread-oriented.
How did you evaluate the bye week just in terms of some of that self-scouts and that improvement?
Yeah, I think that was critical. The coordinator stuck around, and we dug in on Sunday and Monday really hard and looked at us. And I think we definitely, clearly every team develops tendencies. Play callers develop tendencies. And I think you've got to look at that, and you've got to see it for what it is, and recognize that sometimes, those are the calls that are dictated by the game situation. And everybody kind of is who they are by midway through the season anyway, and you can't really reinvent yourself. But I think you've got to be self-aware and know that, hey, in this situation, we've been doing this a lot, and you've got to be willing to adjust. And that was a big part of the emphasis on the first part of the week. And then, pretty much, I don't know, I'm hoping those guys did a lot of work while we were gone. I was on the road recruiting, and, got back, and they had the scattering report done, so that was positive. And we're, on to North Dakota State. We had a little light practice on Sunday, kind of blow the weekend out a little bit. And, back at it this morning. It was beautiful. Nice snowy day out there. It was awesome.
Do you think you're able to maybe turn the corner a little bit on some of the guys who've been hobbled and shaken?
Yeah, I'd like to think so, but I don't really, at this stage, like I said, there's certain guys that are just going to play with what they have. And it's probably not going to get a lot better until they get a couple of weeks off at the end of the season, quite honestly. There's guys that are, whether it's Logan Jones with those ribs that he had a few years, those don't feel better in the season. You'd like to think they do, but you kind of deal with it. And so we're not unlike anybody else. Everybody's got, nicks and bruises and dings, and there's certainly some guys that we'd like to get back, and we're hopeful that maybe that's going to happen, but it's just a matter of time.
Braden Conkel's played a lot of that big nickel and that package with 3 safeties. How much have you liked that? Where has it progressed? Do you hope to continue to use that package?
I think it's all about matchups, and that's something that we're always paying attention to. Is I think Braden's played linebacker, and he has a big body, and he's a better coverage guy than I think a lot of people give him credit for, and so he does create a good matchup for us there. And I think that some of it is really like predicated on Troy's role on offense sometimes too, because we feel like Troy can do a lot of the same types of things, and so we'll probably play a little bit more base defense against this group because they do run a little bit more 12 personnel. But that's a package that I think has been good to us for the most part.
How about the health of Troy? Is his injury, I know a little bit of a lower leg injury, is that an injury that can progress in this amount of time, maybe in a bye week?
Yeah, I'd say probably, and I'm speculating here, Troy probably has the same injury that Dalton Snead has. And he had it, and it happened against SEMO. And the kid hasn't missed a game except for the one I held him out of. I don't know that he's going to get significantly better, but he's one tough dude, I'll tell you that.
Does this feel like a conference game even though North Dakota?
It is a conference game.
Yeah, well, I mean.
So thanks for pointing that out.
Right.
Yeah. You want to talk about that, or should we just hold off? I mean, I'm probably going to get fined for talking about our scheduling stuff. So it's a conference game for us. And I pointed that out to our players on Sunday. I make sure they understand the significance of this game for us. And also pointed out that there's been a couple teams that have rolled out there to North Dakota and maybe not understood the importance of that and paid the price. And so, I mean, this is a huge, huge game for us. I mean, huge game for us in terms of the way this season sets up, coming off the bye week, getting that taste out of our mouth from that Sacramento State, who evidently is a pretty good football team, And so I tried to tell you guys that a couple weeks ago, but you didn't want to listen to me. So any other questions?
Yeah, you talked about them being kind of a mid-pressure defensive team, pressuring about 35% of the time. Do you consider that high? And how do you go about pass pro, some of the things that were an issue against Sacramento State, fixing those things?
Well, I mean, we only gave up 4 sacks, so I don't know how you look at it. We also threw for more yards, but they're a different team. The problem with Sac State was their one-on-one matchups, right? I mean, it was 99 and 95. Those were the problems. And so we also had some problems with our backs going the right way in protection. And we've got that cleaned up. I think I've got Coach McGee's attention on that. And I spent a little time working with the running backs last Wednesday. And, I think you can't have those self-inflicted wounds when you're playing good teams. And some of it's, like I said, going to be matchup related. I don't know that I would consider these guys. I mean, Cal Poly blitzed us like 70% of the time, okay? I'd say that we were probably in that 40-45% range against Sac State. So I wouldn't say this group is any higher of a pressure group. They do a lot of movement. And so even if they're not blitzing, they're not bringing an extra body, there's always some kind of twisting or stunting going on up front. And so you've got to play with great technique and pass those things off, communicate with one another up front. The backs and the tight ends have to, do their job in terms of pass protection. And so I think there's some, I like 55. I like 15. I think 15's got some juice off the edge. And those guys are guys that we're going to have to win some matchups on.
Coming off the loss with the bye week, is it a time for any sort of drastic changes, or is it just kind of small tweaks here and there?
Yeah, I think, like I said, you kind of are who you are at this stage of the season. It's about incremental improvement. The teams that separate themselves down the stretch are the ones that, learn from their mistakes, clean some things up. It's not like all of a sudden we're going to become, a team that throws the ball 70 times a game and a team that blitzes 60% of the time. I mean, that's not going to be the answer to us playing better. Is going to be, doing the things that we already spend a lot of time doing better. And that incremental improvement, I think, is what separates teams down the stretch.
We talked a little bit about the FCS and how many top 25 teams lost last week. Well, some more lost again during your bye week. How important is it to bounce back, especially in the FCS?
Yeah, I mean, every single week in this league is going to be a war. I said that a long time ago. And you even look, it's like, you think, okay, hey, this team is not having a great year. Well, go play them and, tell me that that's not a team that doesn't have talent. And, everybody's got 63 scholarships. Everybody spends a ridiculous amount of their life watching each other on tape. And Nobody's leaving the office at 4:30. I mean, everybody's up grinding. Everybody's trying to do the best that they can to prepare. So the margin is so small. There's not a huge differentiation between anybody at this level, really. I mean, you look at like a James Madison with the facilities they have and the money that they spend and the tradition that North Dakota State has. So you've got these upper echelon teams that, whether it's facilities, investment, whatever it might be. But I think the Big Sky Conference, by and large, is a very homogeneous group. I mean, everybody's kind of on a similar playing field. Even if you have an advantage in terms of the revenue that you might spend on football, you might have a disadvantage in terms of your proximity to the recruits. And so everything kind of levels itself out. And it's a really good league. And I mean, I think it just keeps getting better and better. And you look at guys like Troy Taylor and the job he's doing at Sacramento State, and a guy that was a Power 5 coordinator, just like Chris Ball was. And the coaching has gotten better and better in this league, and I think it's going to continue to be more and more challenging.
You mentioned the kickoff time this week. Is it harder to get your energy going kind of earlier?
We're ready to go at 6:30 every morning. You guys never come to practice. I can't believe it. No, I told our guys that, and they were all excited. They're like, yeah, we're good. Our guys don't like the late kickoffs. Like going to, I mean this sincerely, and I hope that I do get fined for saying this. If we go to California, we should never play a late game. It should not. That should be a rule in this league. Either that, or every time they come up here, we should make them kick off at 7 o'clock Mountain when it's 22 degrees. I think that's. I mean, I understand why they're doing it, but it makes no sense to me. This is how college football should be played. Like, if the revenue stream dictates that we have to play a late game, I get it. If I'm playing in the Pac-12 and they say, hey, you're getting $35 million a year from the Pac-12 network and you're going to play this game at 8 o'clock Pacific, okay, it is what it is. But, I mean, every game in this league should be played between a 12 and a 2 o'clock kickoff. Every game. And I would like to be on record as saying that. All right, we good?
All right, thank you.